Howdy. It's your favorite N-word, Terrence Prescott Barnes, and I want to talk about a fanfic that I created for The Craft Legacy. I wasn't really a fan of the first movie because the sisterhood dissolved right in front of our eyes, and if you know me, I love girls, I love girl groups, I love females, I love women. The whole aspect of the divine feminine is great with me, alright? So, when I was watching the movie, after I saw the trailer, I recognized Lovey Simone, and I watched Greenleaf, and I think Greenleaf is ridiculously entertaining for a religious show, but I think seeing Lovey Simone just set me up for failure because I love dark-skinned women and she is very beautiful. I love the character on Greenleaf, but her character in The Craft Legacy was beautiful. Loved every second of it, but because the character and everybody else was so beautiful in the movie, minus the stepdad, I really liked, just went into this whole spiral of a conundrum of creating a fanfic for the Craft universe, and it happened, I think, 5/8 throughout the movie and whatnot. And my husband was already doing his own thing with his fanfic too, and we both like witches, we both like chicks, and it was just it was a very beautiful, inspiring movie, to the point I ended up making this fanfic called Allegiance. And in this fanfic, it wouldn't take place in high school, it would take place in adult lives around the age of 27. So it would still keep up with the concept of 4 cardinal directions: earth, wind, fire, and water. They would have their spell books. They would be bound because of certain situations within a fanfic that I made. So starting from the beginning, back when they were in high school, when their coven was coming together, these girls were all 17 and they were in different countries across the world. You have a girl in Egypt, you have a girl in South Africa, you have a girl in China, and you have a girl in Turks and Caicos. So, well, more like Cuba. And they all grew up, found 3 other girls in their coven, and they went with the motions of doing the witchcraft and things like that. So you have Tissala, who is from Egypt, Fifini, who is from the Caribbeans, Dexi, who is from China, and Queen, who is from South Africa. Let me see. So Tissala would be earth, Fifini would be fire, Dexi would be wind, and Queen would be water. And in their covens, they are their element, they are their cardinal direction, but their covens were killed by a king, which you saw did not take place in Legacy, right? So you have those covens getting destroyed, and the remaining member is bound, and they do this ceremony to keep the power of female witches, sorceresses, all of those terms and whatnot around the world at bay. They don't always catch every coven, but when they do, they make it a point to keep them weak. And with the last girl being bound and not killed, that whole coven, that whole generation is stuck until the last girl actually dies, so she'll live a whole full life and stuff like that and whatnot. So after they go through that whole situation of watching their sisters get killed and having to deal with the whole emotional baggage that comes with it, the four of them grow up to be four different women, and they don't know anything. They don't know anything about other covens or anything like that. They may have witnessed other kinds of magic and sorcery throughout the world and whatnot, but they weren't allowed to be a part of it because their powers were bound, and they never sought a way to break it. So regardless of them not finding a way to break it or feeling the need to break it, they were still collecting data of witchcraft, sorcery, witch doctors, voodoo, magic, hexing, tech, all kinds of stuff that deals with spellbinding, right? And they would just have the information because they wanted to collect it just in case something ever happens and they get their powers back, they would be ready and whatnot. So from 17 to 27, the story starts immediately when the four of them get together for some kind of convention in the Netherlands. So you have Tissala, who ends up being a pharmaceutical corporate executive. Fifini, who doesn't really have a job. She just hits a lottery and ends up being a 100 millionaire. Dexi is the president of operations for an aviation company, and Queen is the owner of a Fortune 500 company that deals with factory machinery parts. So you have the three girls going to the Netherlands for this convention, right? And they're minding their business, celebrating, doing speeches, meeting other entrepreneurs, businesswomen around the world, right? And it would be lovely. It would be a lovely celebration in the opening sequence to a movie. Just a bunch of women celebrating their life and whatnot, and accomplishments and things like that. And then during that week, they start to hear whispers and whatnot, right? So they are all being drawn together because the kings have been doing this since the dawn of time, right? So they've been killing off covens since the dawn of time, weakening the power of female spellbinding, so to speak. And with their sisters being dead and so many other spirits roaming the planet and whatnot, when those four get together because of their position in life with being so rich and powerful and sought after and things like that, they have all this influence and whatnot. So all of the ghosts are whispering to them to try to get them to get to this weather vane that's very close to the event, right? And it'll be on the second floor of this balcony, canopy, whatever it is, whatever I said it was at the time when I was making it. And there's this very beautiful pure crystal weather vane, and if you know witchcraft, crystals are very important. So the four women get drawn to it, and they end up on their respective cardinal direction, right? And as soon as they step on it all at the same time, a great phenomenon happens to where the spirit shoots straight up to the ozone. Once they reach the ozone, they separate and go across the entire planet, and once they meet up again, they shoot down to the planet, through the planet, back to their bodies. And this phenomenon has never happened. Nobody knows anything about it and whatnot. The girls don't know anything about it. They're just flying, and they can't stop themselves from flying, even though their bodies are still stuck to the N, the W, the S, and the E. And they get back, and they can't move, and they start listening again, right? So the spirits are telling them to name their coven, and they keep saying names and whatnot. Then the four girls finally, or the four women finally decide on the name of their coven, which will be Ruchi. R as in Romeo, U as in unicorn, double C, I as in igloo. So you have Ruchi being announced at that time, and then they can move again. So throughout their whole decade of them gathering all kind of knowledge of spellbinding and stuff like that, they all know a teleporting spell. So as soon as the four of them connect hand in hand around it weather vane, they instantly teleport, and then the movie shoot off into whatever it's supposed to be, right? So, without getting into too much detail, I would want the fanfic to move in the direction of them getting revenge for their sisters that died. And since I'm not going to treat this like my regular stories where resurrection is simple. In my world's resurrection is very simple. If you have life as a superpower, if it's connected to your ether system, if it's all up in your DNA and RNA, you can resurrect anybody at any time as long as you have a sufficient amount of their DNA, right? So I'm not doing it with this fanfic. So they can't resurrect them because, you know, so many resurrection laws with spellbinding and the whole balance thing where you have to have one life for another. So with them having to deal with that law, they can't bring their girls back because they don't have somebody to take their place, and they don't want to do that because these women are actually benevolent. So they set out these revenge plans, and with them knowing, with them gathering so much intellect over the years, they figure out that the kings have been doing this ceremony of killing off covens and leaving one after to deal with all the pain and stuff, and to anchor that coven without the ability to level up or gain more power. So when it comes to that, they figure out throughout history how many times it has happened. They look through all kind of record books and stuff like that. And then if you know, in a real world, how there's a lot of information in history that is not taught because they don't want to teach it. They figure out so many ways of finding the knowledge of how many times the kings have done this. So with them finding out more information and afford them put their minds together, they make up their own ceremony of killing the kings that killed their sisters. So throughout their movie, it's a whole revenge plot of they get their powers back, and they realize they are a lot more powerful than they were when they were 17, and they didn't have that much time with their powers. So it's like the emperor's new clothing to them, and they are all excited and whatnot, and they cover up all of this stuff by what did they do? They go back to their regular life. They attend to being businesswomen and things like that while covering up their tracks and communicating with each other from 4 different points in the world. And they are trying to build up these plots with killing all of the kings at the same time, right? And it's not an easy task because, you know, those sorcerers are a lot more older than them and a lot more wise. So they are having a hard time with, you know, time constraints and being in different time zones and having to be awake to talk to their new sister and things like that. So the fanfic would focus on them coming together, getting revenge at the same time, and juggling their real lives and stuff. So when they finally get them all together and kill them all at the same time, this other huge phenomenon happens to where they get this huge surge of vortex powers and almost basically becoming goddesses. So after they kill the man and nothing really happens to them, but they feel more powerful and they feel a peace because they finally got revenge for their dead sisters and all of the other ones over the world and whatnot that were also whispering to them when they were in the Netherlands. They feel the serenity, and then they all decide to come up with another plan, right? So they don't want to stop there. They want to protect girls all over the world, even after they're dead, right? So they come up with this plan to all get pregnant at the same time, right? And they do ovulation and all this other kind of stuff, speak to their Kanos, and they all get on the same cycle, and then they all deal with their bows at the time. And you might find me lame for this, but the girls they had a very good time as teenage witches until the covens were killed, right? And they vowed separately, because they didn't know each other at 17, to not let that defeat them. So with them becoming multi-millionaires, being rich, being profitable, being great people for the betterment of humanity and a whole, to you know, being businesswomen and things like that, they didn't let their deaths go in vain. So they didn't become junkies, psychopaths, all of that stuff. They actually became strong women and whatnot, and their luck never died out. They fought tooth and nail for everything. They accepted all of the gifts. They did what they had to do to stay on top and become those powerful businesswomen, even though Fifini basically won the lottery and the rest of her life was made, because it was like 777 million. And they just come together, make this huge sisterhood, basically becoming supremes like in AHS. Then they decided to get pregnant together, so they are making this new ceremony with the four of them being as powerful as they are, preparing to make the next generation even more powerful. And the guys that they have been with for a number of years are actually good guys. So they don't know anything about witchcraft and stuff like that. They weren't able to grow up abusing their powers, so they don't want to abuse them now, because with the way that they fought tooth and nail for their careers, they don't have to use their powers to get ahead in life. So with them having such a great life ahead of them after getting revenge and going around and helping other covens in high school get it together and teach them not to abuse their powers, they all get pregnant at the same time, and it's all gravy, right? So they have the best bows in the world. They say screw religion, screw tradition, screw their parents. They're gonna handle getting pregnant without getting married and all of that other stuff that comes along with it. And the story progresses to how they make up these academies around the world and start getting witches together, right? And they're in their 3rd month of pregnancy, and something changes to where they end up being in the same place numerous times, right? So it'll be like Fifini and Queen in North America, Tissala and Dexi in Australia, Dexi, Fifini, and Queen in Japan, and this keeps happening, and they all end up at the same place once. And they're not thinking anything of it, because, you know, they're business women, and Fifini is doing most of the academy work, because she doesn't really have a job until the situation happens where they make a new coven named Ruchi. So at the end of the movie, it'll be about them meeting some other incredibly dangerous spellbinders, and they during the situation of them being in the same place, they end up getting caught up in this situation where they feel like their lives are in danger. So they start fighting, and they have to use their powers and whatnot. And then a kicker that I didn't explain earlier, because of the situation with them originally being from different covens, the closer they are together, the weaker their powers are. So every time that they ended up in the same place, they would notice they have a lack of power, right? So that's why during the fanfic, the girls can't kill out of their kings at the same time, because in the same place, so they would do it in their hometowns, right? And they figured out that they can't be super powerful together, So in this situation where they all together and they feel like they gotta fight for their life, they gotta do the self-defense thing, and then you learn that they're not just spellbinders, they're almost UFC equivalent, almost Rona Mitra in that one movie, Doomsday. Oh, that was a great fucking movie. Tomb Raidering it, ultravioleting it. They are quite nasty in physical hand-to-hand combat, right? So you get to see that they do spells and have all of this knowledge over time throughout the movie. And then at the end, when that major fight scene happens, they have to be controlled by more and more people. So they're doing all of this fighting and knocking all of these dudes and women out, and then these 4 specific type of golems come out, right? And they're like cock diesel, like Francis went out and everything, and they just come out of there with the muscles bulging, and then they pull out these extremely long blades, right? And it's like I would do it like this. So you have these like 7-foot tall men, right? And they have this sheath on them, and the sheath is actually taller than them. So while they're walking in this big open space, the 4 of them can't be close together because their blades are so long. So their blades are like 10 feet long, right? And they pull them out, and you're thinking, you know, they can't hold the sheath and pull the sword out. So when they bring it up, they whip it out. So the sheath is just thrown all over the place. The next thing you know, you see all of these rainbow colors coming out as the sword is coming out of the sheath in slow motion. And as soon as they are unsheathed, the girls have no power whatsoever. So they have no choice but to forfeit, because they don't even have super strength, because they lose their abilities and powers the closer they are together, right? And the longer they are together, the more they lose and stuff like that. So during that fight, they're trying their hardest to stay alive, and they know that the longer it goes, the harder it's going to get. So they pull them blades up and they hold it to their necks, and they say, "Follow us." So they end up going to a throne. They'll walk through this whole compound, and they end up at these 4 seats, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And guess who they are? Some fucking goddesses. Nah, I'm kidding, they're not goddesses. But it would be like a segue into a sequel of The Craft Allegiance. And the 4 girls will be on this quest to make females safe, because you know the patriarchy gotta end it somehow, right? So that's what the girls wanted to do, and they ended up at the feet of the patriarchy, so to speak. But the patriarchy is actually 3 women and a man. That's a coven. And if there will be a sequel to Allegiance, a lot of things will be explained, but I'm going to leave it at that and just say that that was what's in my mind after watching the movie last night with my husband. And I was telling him about what I did, what I just explained to y'all earlier in the day before he signed into work, and he in the kitchen, like, he trying to do the math in his head how I made up this so quickly. But if you know me, I've been writing since the 7th grade, alright, and I make up stuff easily. If it's not my own, it's probably easy to make, but if I'm making up something original, it would be excessively difficult to make it up in that short period of time like I did. But there was this one time in college, It was a writing class, a creative writing class, and like I said before, the Tri-Stone era has 25 plus original stories and a plethora of side stories, right? And you know, I don't want to make up something else and having to deal with the tug of war of, am I going to keep this idea or am I going to get rid of this idea? I don't want to deal with it. So I asked the instructor in the class, can I please use a story I've already written, because I really do not want to have to deal with this battle in my goddamn head. And he said I couldn't. I had to do something original. So guess what I did? I made up something in 24 hours, and this motherfucker had the nerve to say that he felt like I've already been working on it for a long period of time, like Ricardo was this morning. He was literally looking me in my eyes trying to figure out how the hell did I make that up in that short period of time? Well, it's easy. I tell the best stories, so might as well be able to, right? Mwah. But it would be off the chain if that was made into an actual movie. The Craft Allegiance. 4 girls around the world, but I'm pretty sure having a budget for a movie like that would be the same as Sense8, right? There's a lot of goddamn money. But I'll let y'all hoes later. I'm about to go play Smash Brothers with my husband. Try real hard not to drink chocolate milk. It's very hard not to drink chocolate milk. Y'all have no idea. I'm supposed to be drinking water and getting back into shape, but chocolate milk is great fuel for my brain, cause there's this thing I like to do, and it's called figuring out better ways to fuel my mind so I can write these stories and create these characters and do these designs more superfluous, right? And be more extra than I was 2 years ago, and trying to develop better things and give my brain more fuel to be active, right? And one of my secrets is, the reason why my mind is so powerful is because after orgasms I will eat chocolate, and chocolate is something that makes it just fuels my mind to be more active. And chocolate after orgasms, it sets me up for a great time in dreamland. Okay, I'm out.